Aimee did not have an easy childhood. She was born with a disease called fibular hemimelia, and when she was only 1 year old, she had to have both legs amputated. Doctors told her parents that Aimee could not walk and would have to spend a lifetime in a wheelchair. Do you think that stopped her? Do you think she gave up her dreams? Thanks to the prostheses and to her strong spirit, she began to practice sports at a very young age, especially track and field. She was the first amputee to compete in the prestigious First Division of the NCAA in the United States. In 1996, she competed in the Atlanta Paralympic Games. Meanwhile, Aimee earned a degree in history and diplomacy and was selected to do an internship at the Pentagon, Foreign Affairs, the only woman among 250 men. When Aimee stopped competing in athletics, she began a new career in Exactly. She had appeared in many magazines, walked down the runway in fashion shows, been photographed by very important photographers, been a spokeswoman for cosmetic brands, etc. We can't even list everything. She's done so much. As Aimee is very restless and very talented, she's also taken up acting and has appeared in dozens of famous television series and movies. And who knows, maybe she's working on a new project right now. In addition, Aimee also gives many lectures and speeches to talk about self-esteem, identity, the body, design, and innovation. In 2014, she was named a TED All-Star, and in 2017, she was included in the National Hall of Fame for Women in the United States. Aimee is amazing, isn't she? She has a lot of confidence in herself and always says that she does not feel like a disabled person, but rather extra capable. Thanks to this confidence and the many prosthetic models that she has, she can use some legs to run, others to jump, to be well dressed. She can also change her height and be taller or shorter, etc. Aimee believes that prostheses should not only serve to replace the legs, but that they should go further and allow them to do things that some legs of flesh and bone would not allow her to do, just as they should be beautiful and with varied and original designs and uses, as is the case, for example, with glasses. If you could design prostheses, what would they be like? Gertrude was born in New York and had 5 brothers. She learned to swim as a young girl, and when she was only 12 years old, she became part of the WSA, Women's Swimming Association. That same year, she earned her first world record in the 880-yard freestyle, becoming the youngest person to hold a swimming world record. Incredible! In 1924, when she was only 19 years old, she participated in the Paris Olympics and won 3 medals, 1 gold in the 4x100-meter relay race, where together with her teammates, she set a new world record, and 2 bronze medals in individual races. Then she set other records and became even more famous. But Gertrude did not want to be famous. She wanted to do incredible things. So she began to train hard for a huge challenge, for which she would be remembered forever. Exactly. Only 5 men had achieved the feat of crossing the 20 miles of sea that separated France and England, and people believed that a woman could never do it. The first time she tried, she was disqualified because her coach, who did not believe in her, tried to rescue her from the water when she was resting. But Gertrude did not give up. She changed coaches and tried again. Equipped with motorcycle glasses so that the salt water didn't get into her eyes, she began on August 6, 1926. A small boat accompanied her, with her family and a reporter who had an exclusive. But suddenly, another boat appeared, rented by other journalists who were angry because they also wanted to track the crossing. This caused tense moments, and they almost hurt Gertrude. During the crossing, it was very windy, and there were rough seas, so Gertrude had nothing easy, and even her coach advised her to quit, but she refused. In fact, because of the wind and strong sea currents, Gertrude could not go straight, and instead of 20 miles, she swam 34. Still, it was faster than anyone had done it before, and she set the record in 14 hours and 34 minutes. Gertrude was received as a true hero in her country, where a reception was held, attended by more than 2 million people. Long live Gertrude! As a child, Joanne loved to read, inventing fantastic stories and telling them to her sister, but she had never dared to publish anything. One day in 1990, while waiting for a train that was 4 hours late, she imagined the story of a boy who went to a magic school. Do you know what she named this character? Unfortunately, that same year, Joanne's mother died of a disease called multiple sclerosis. The following year, Joanne went to live in Portugal, where she worked as an English teacher and continued to imagine and write the Harry Potter stories. In Portugal, she married and had her first daughter, Jessica. But the marriage did not go well, and she returned to England with her daughter, where she did not have a job or much money, and nothing was going very well. However, she did not give up and continued writing, until in 1995, she finished her first book. After 12 publishers told her no, and after spending more than a year shopping her book around, finally a publishing house decided to publish it, printing just 1,000 copies. But the book was not published with the name Joanne Rowling, because the publishers were afraid that boys wouldn't read a story written by a woman. The book was an international success, and that allowed Joanne to continue writing the rest of the books. Since then, the Harry Potter saga has become a mass phenomenon and has become the best-selling book saga in history. Thanks to her successes, Joanne earned a lot of money. But instead of keeping everything for herself, she's donated part of her fortune to associations that fight against child poverty and help single-parent families, as well as for research looking for a cure for multiple sclerosis. Carmen was born in a shanty town in Barcelona and learned to dance when she learned to walk, while accompanying her father, a flamenco guitarist, to play for the locals in Barcelona to earn some coins. Soon the word spread that there was a gypsy girl who had a special way of dancing. It was all feeling and strength, brutality and precision. From there, she began acting in larger venues and doing many performances with her family company, Trio Amaya, and they began to call her La Capitana, the captain. Although she was very young, she no longer danced according to established norms, but had her own, combining feminine and masculine flamenco and forging her own style. In 1936, the Civil War broke out in Spain. While Carmen and her family were on a tour, they had to interrupt. A few months later, they managed to flee the war, arrived in Portugal, and embarked to Argentina. Argentina, her success was immediate and spectacular. Carmen spent a whole year performing in the same theater before traveling to other countries around the world. Carmen was a pioneer because of her way of feeling the flamenco dance. She revolutionized flamenco by showing qualities until then reserved for men, such as her great force and freedom. She was one of the first dancers to wear tight pants to dance. She said that the pants allowed her to accentuate the splendor of her movements. Her success was growing, and it was in the United States where she became a world star. She was on the cover of important magazines, starred in movies in Hollywood, and became a superstar of flamenco dancing. Carmen made flamenco very popular all over the world and inspired the next generations of dancers, bailadoras, who fought to have a much more leading role in flamenco performances. Mary's childhood was not easy. She was born in a very poor family in England, and of her parents' 10 children, only Mary and her brother Joseph reached adulthood. Her father died when she was just 11 years old. As Mary was a child and she was also poor, she could only go to Sunday school, where she barely learned to read and write. To help provide for her family, Mary helped her parents collect fossils and pebbles from the cliffs and beaches close to home to sell them to tourists. When her father died, she continued to do so, although it was a very dangerous job because there were often landslides. Mary was very curious, brave, and intelligent, so she began to be interested in the fossils she found and to wonder what animals all those strange bones belonged to. At the time, it was thought that they were creatures that lived on the seabed or came from distant lands, but Mary wasn't so sure. She began to read and study a lot about fossils and paleontology, and thus began to form her own ideas. Those fossils she found were not of any known animal. What if they were animals that had lived many years ago and now no longer existed? Mary's first great discovery was the complete skeleton of an ichthyosaur, a marine reptile over 5 meters long. Then she found the fossil of another marine reptile, a plesiosaurus. And then she found a skeleton of a pterosaur, a flying reptile. It was evident that animals like those did not exist today. Mary was certain they belonged to creatures that had died out millions of years ago, a revolutionary idea. Mary also discovered that some strange fossils that nobody knew what they were or where they came from were actually fossilized poop. This was a great discovery because studying dinosaur poop is very important, as it helps us learn about how they lived and what they ate. With all these discoveries, Mary proved to be a true expert. However, being a woman, she could not go to university, nor be a member of any scientific group. Many of her discoveries went unnoticed or were attributed to other men. How unfair! Although Mary never saw the recognition she deserved, today she's recognized as a pioneer in the field of paleontology and one of the most important paleontologists in history. Climate change is seriously affecting our planet. It damages ecosystems, plants, animals, and people. Scientists have been warning us for many years, and the situation is increasingly unsustainable. Many people are worried about climate change, but there's a young Swedish student who can't stop thinking about it. This student is Greta Thunberg, and she is depressed and worried about the climate situation. For several years, she knew that climate change was a real catastrophe, and that the governments were not doing enough to stop it. Greta believed she had to do something to put pressure on politicians, but she didn't know what she could do. After all, she was only 15 years old. In addition, Greta has been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome and selective mutism, and that sometimes makes it difficult for her to make connections and interact with other people. Nothing is easy for her. Finally, on August 20th, 2018, Greta decided that instead of going to school, she would protest in front of the Swedish parliament until the general elections, to pressure the politicians in her country. After the elections, she continued to protest and strike as a student every Friday. First, Greta was alone, but little by little, people joined in her protest, and she began attracting the attention of the media and politicians. The impact has been so great that millions of people in more than 125 countries have made joint strikes to demand that governments take urgent and effective measures to curb climate change. Thus, not only is Greta not alone, but her protest has spread throughout the world, turning Greta and the movement she started into a real revolution to stop climate change. Greta also gives talks, interviews, and great speeches to international organizations such as the UN to raise awareness and force governments to take immediate action and not stand idly by. It's amazing what Greta has achieved at only 17 years old, isn't it? And you, what do you think we can do to stop global warming? How do you think we can convince governments to take climate change seriously? In the country of South Africa, when Miriam Makeba was born, they treated you very differently depending on the color of your skin. Blacks and whites lived apart and could not have mixed relationships or have children. This era was called apartheid. Her mother worked cleaning houses and did not earn enough to support the family, so she started selling homemade beer. The laws of the country said that this was illegal, and they put Miriam's mother in prison. Miriam was only 18 days old and needed her mother, so she also went to jail. Miriam liked to sing when she was little, and since she helped her mother clean houses, singing made the hours go by faster and made the days more beautiful. Singing made her happy. Miriam had a powerful, vibrant, and special voice. She sang with groups and created a girl band called the Skylarks, who recorded many songs. They sang jazz and African music. Among all her songs, the one that became the most famous was Pata Pata. They had songs about a wide variety of topics, and some had an anti-apartheid message that the government didn't like. Miriam became famous and did concerts in different countries. While in America, she was told she could not return to South Africa. She became an exile. Miriam kept singing and telling her story. Her songs made many people around the world see that there was no justice in South Africa for those with dark skin. She even went to tell her story at the UN, but this angered the South African government even more. She always kept singing and became very famous. She was the first African person to win a Grammy Award, which is the most famous music award in the world. Spectacular. She was proud to be African and to bring African music around the world. She also brought her traditions with her, such as the way she dressed and combed her hair, and her look became very famous. She said, "I see other black women imitate my style, which is no style at all, but just letting our hair be itself. They call it the Afro look." With her example, she helped many African American women and girls not feel ashamed of their hair and feel proud. While Miriam was in exile for 31 years, the laws of apartheid were abolished, and finally, a wonderful day, Nelson Mandela became president of South Africa and asked Miriam to return home. She came back and could sing in her country, and finally, people of all skin colors could dance together. Junko Tabei was born in a humble family of 7 brothers and was a fragile and weak-looking girl. She began to practice mountaineering at age 10, but could not continue because her family was too poor for such an expensive hobby. Finally, at university, she joined the mountaineering club and was able to practice mountaineering again. After graduating, she created the first women's mountaineering club in Japan, the Ladies Climbing Club. Junko founded it after seeing how the mountaineers treated her. Some didn't want to climb with her, and others told her that she only climbed to find a husband. During those years, she was completing increasingly important expeditions. She climbed Mount Fuji, Annapurna, and the Matterhorn. In 1970, Junko and the club she had founded began to prepare their most ambitious challenge to make an exclusively female expedition to climb Everest, the highest mountain in the world. As an expedition of this type needed a lot of money, they began to search for sponsors. But it was very difficult because most thought that women had to dedicate themselves to raising children. Finally, the Yomiuri Shimbun newspaper and Nippon TV television financed the expedition. Despite the sponsors, the budget was very small, and the expedition had to fight and resort to ingenuity to save money. They used recycled car seats to make waterproof bags and gloves, and bought goose feathers to sew their own sleeping bags. Since some of the climbers were teachers, they collected food in cans at their schools. About 5 years later, in early 1975, when they had already achieved what they needed and were sufficiently trained, they traveled to Kathmandu. adventure began quietly, but when they were 6,300 meters above sea level, an avalanche buried their camp. Some of them were left unconscious and had to be rescued, including Junko, who lost consciousness for more than 6 minutes. The avalanche did not stop the expedition, nor Junko, who decided to continue the ascent. On May 16, 1975, she reached the top of Everest and became the first woman to reach its peak. The expedition had an important impact in Japan. Junko toured the entire country, and a miniseries was filmed about the expedition. But Junko did not like fame very much and immediately returned to her life and to mountaineering. In 1992, she reached the top of Puncak Jaya in Indonesia and became the first woman to complete the 7 summits, the highest peaks on each of the 7 continents. Incredible! When asked when she would retire, she always said that as long as she had strength, she would continue to climb, that perhaps she would slow down, but that she would never quit. And so it was. Ada was the daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron and Isabella Milbanke, a mathematician people would call the Princess of Parallelograms. Her mother gave her a logical and scientific education, something very unusual for girls of that time. Thus, Ada would combine her parents' talents and describe her work as poetic science. Ada was very intelligent, very curious, and wanted to know everything. For example, she liked the idea of flying and wanted to make a flying machine. For that reason, she thoroughly studied birds to find the perfect balance between the length of the wings and the weight of the body. She tried different designs and recorded everything in a beautiful book called Flyology. One day at a dance, she met an elderly and grumpy mathematician named Charles Babbage. Ada knew a lot about math, and they immediately became friends. Charles invited Ada to see the design of an invention, a machine that could do mathematical calculations automatically. Although the idea of the machine was very advanced for its time, and they never managed to finish it, Ada was fascinated and began to think and imagine everything that such a machine could do. Maybe it could do things beyond mathematical calculations. Ada imagined a world where machines did much more than calculations. A world where machines could do many things, such as composing music and recording it on something similar to today's USB drives. She was a visionary. To operate the magic machinery, Ada wrote a complex algorithm to give orders to this machine so that it could execute them accurately. That algorithm was the first computer program, and that is why Ada is considered the first computer programmer in history. Every year on the second Tuesday of October, we celebrate Ada Lovelace Day, a day that pays tribute to all the successes of women in the field of engineering, mathematics, and science.